We're going to be doing our most fundamental teaching course now, Fellowship of the Unashamed, that narrow way that leads to life. This is how to make revival personal to us. So we're not just talking about it, we're not just praying about it, we are actually having revival take place in our own hearts. So we're going to go through this lesson by lesson. There's nothing new or newly invented that's in this class or in this book. But we have drifted so far away from the fundamental teaching of Christianity over the last 50 or 100 years. We have drifted so far that these things could seem like a novel concept to us, when in fact it's just old-fashioned religion. And every place we go, all we do is say, this is old-fashioned revival. This is the old-fashioned gospel. This is the same gospel that built the Bible camps across the U.S. and Canada. This is old-time religion. That's all we're teaching. It just happens to be that we live in such obscure times that these things have been virtually lost. But if you compare what you will be hearing over this semester in the fellowship class, if you compare what we're teaching to reading any old hymnal, if you read the words to songs from hymnals 100 years ago, 150 or 200 years ago, you will see the same theology in those hymnals that we're going to be teaching in this semester. So we're not inventing anything. We're just going back to the ancient past where the good way is. We're just directing people back to a Christianity that's more solid, that is more real, that is more exciting, that has a better, a great impact on lives. We have a version of Christianity today that doesn't have any power in it. It doesn't change anybody's life. You come in and you stay the same. You're just the same. But old-fashioned religion, man, it changes lives. And so that's all we're doing, is we're going back to the good way, the ancient past where the good way is. So we're going to start over in lesson 1 and just basically read through it and then discuss a few things. Okay, lesson 1. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. He will be like a tree firmly planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in its season. And its leaf does not wither, and in whatever he does, he prospers. Why am I so miserable? What can possibly explain the waves of discontentment and emptiness that wash over us at the best of times? We allegedly live in the most prosperous and enlightened generation. The focus of all our attention and energy is self-fulfillment. Yet, the vast majority of people are neither happy nor satisfied with their lives. Self-fulfillment seems to be the one thing that we lack. Of course, everyone has bad days, so we can easily explain the despair when our car breaks down on the way to work. What we can't explain is the lack of satisfaction that accompanies getting the things we want. We buy all the things that promise us excitement. We get the job that will be so rewarding. We move to the perfect neighborhood. Our house is as good or better than our neighbor's. The coveted vehicle is sitting in our driveway. We spend all our time playing with the latest games and toys. But rather than being happy, we are not. Definitely not. Why am I so miserable? Actually, I'd like to stop there for just 1 minute. Because the thing that we see universally as we go out to minister, and those who are with us that have been out to minister have seen this as clearly as I have, is that we live in a society that has the drive to have it all, and so we have a great show of looking like we have achieved all the things that make for happiness. So we have this great drive to accomplish, to achieve, to obtain all these different things that should make us happy. And as we go out, as we minister everywhere we go, we find that people are so empty. They're so desperately empty. They're so devoid of life that they are just an empty, hollow shell that supposedly looks like it's doing well. And if you go, any place where you go, we'll go to downtown New York City, we'll go among the business people, they will have their whole look and their whole manner about them and their whole list of achievements. We'll go to cities across the U.S. and Canada. Everybody's striving to have the good life. But universally, the people we encounter are so desperately empty as to make you pity them. To make you pity them. Those who have the most stuff. Those who have their 2 SUVs, their boat, their sleds, their all their vacation home and all of the trappings. You see in them such a desperate emptiness that all these things mean nothing. They just mean nothing to them. So one of the reasons that prompts us to go out, because what we do is very difficult. Those who have been with us on the road, they know is very difficult going out. It's very, very arduous and painstaking and hard. It's just hard going out on the road like we do. And you might see pictures of us, on the website of, a happy picture at a coffee shop or something like that. Well, we do. We post the pictures where we're having fun, that it looks like fun. We don't put on all the pictures where it's just like, whoa, this is hard. We don't put the pictures on where everybody is getting oppressed and hammered and the difficulty of being squished in a little van with a bunch of people, and more than that, the difficulty of speaking the clear gospel in front of people. There's a price and a penalty that you pay for speaking the truth in front of non-believers. There's a big price, and so we pay it all the time. Even though our pictures that we post are happy, well, the rest, it's really hard. It's really hard. And the reason we do it is because we know the resounding emptiness that is in the human hearts, that's behind the human eyes. We see and we know how desperately lonely, empty, and unfulfilled everyone is. And that gives us a great desire to go out and to bring living water, to bring a word of hope, to bring encouragement. And what is the word of hope? It's the real gospel, and that's what this is about. Okay, so continuing. Why am I so miserable? Okay, why do we have the emptiness? Why is everyone so desolate? The answer to that question surprisingly starts way back in the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy is part of the first 5 books of the Bible called the Books of the Law. They were written by God through Moses and formed the foundation for the Jewish and Christian religions. Deuteronomy is the 5th or the last book of the law and consists mainly of a summary of God's laws regarding man's conduct. You'll have to forgive me. I'm just editing this book now, so I want to update it. In Deuteronomy chapter 28, we find distinct clues to the problem of mankind's state of general misery. As we begin reading this chapter, we find that Moses has just finished instructing his people at length about the Ten Commandments and the laws of God, and he concludes with this foundation stone of the universe. Okay, so this is Deuteronomy chapter 28. Now it shall be, if you will diligently obey the Lord your God, being careful to do all his commandments, which I command you today, the Lord will set you high above all the nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you if you will obey the Lord your God. Blessed shall you be in the city, blessed shall you be in the country. Blessed shall be the offspring of your body and the produce of your ground. Blessed shall be your basket and your kneading bowl, your food provisions. Blessed shall you be when you come in and when you go out. The Lord will cause your enemies who rise up against you to be defeated before you. They will come out against you one way and flee before you 7 ways. The Lord will command the blessing upon you and on all you put your hand to. The Lord will establish you as a holy people to himself, as he swore to you, if you will keep the commandments of the Lord your God and walk in his ways. The Lord will make you abound in prosperity. The Lord will open for you his good storehouse, the heavens, to give rain to your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hand. And you shall lend to many, but you shall not borrow. And the Lord shall make you the head and not the tail, if you will listen to the commandments of the Lord your God, which I charge you today, to observe them carefully. And do not turn aside from any of the words which I command you today, to the right or to the left. The curse. But it shall come about, if you will not obey the Lord your God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, that all of these curses shall come upon you and overtake you. Cursed shall you be in the city. Cursed shall you be in the country. Cursed shall be your basket and your kneading bowl. Cursed shall be the offspring of your body and the produce of your ground. Cursed shall you be when you come in, and cursed shall you be when you go out. The Lord will send upon you curses and confusion and rebuke in all you undertake to do. The Lord will make the pestilence cling to you. The Lord will smite you with consumption, which is cancer, and with fever, with inflammation, with fiery heat, and with the sword, and with blight, and with mildew. They shall pursue you until you perish. And the heaven which is over your head shall be bronze, and the earth iron. And the Lord will make the rain powder and dust. The Lord will cause you to be defeated before your enemies. You shall go out against them one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them. And you shall be an example of terror to all. The Lord will smite you with boils, with tumors, with scab, with itch, from which you cannot be healed. The Lord will smite you with madness and blindness and with bewilderment of heart. Now we have some evidence of what the general problem is. To the question, why am I so miserable? The Bible's answer is, we have fallen under the curse of God's displeasure because of constantly breaking his laws. And this is not peculiar to the Old Testament. The Apostle Paul says in the book of Colossians 3:25, For he who does wrong will receive the consequences of the wrong he has done, and that without partiality. That means no matter who you are or how justified you feel about doing something that God's law says is wrong, you will be punished. Now let's start with the basics. Why are these laws so important to our personal happiness, and why can't we simply ignore them? Okay, before we go further with this, why are we directed way back to Deuteronomy 28 in our quest to find out why we're so unfulfilled today? Why do we go so far back? And how does Deuteronomy 28 relate to the feeling of discontentment that we have? Like, as we were doing some concerts right before Christmas, Christmas is a very good time of year to illustrate the point that we're making today, which is that we all have such high expectations of family get-togethers, gatherings, and the sweetness of Christmas. And we're so looking forward to it. We do so much to prepare for Christmas. And yet, when we get to Christmas, we find, instead of it being fulfilling and full of joy and full of peace and good Christmas cheer, instead we find it's so many times wretched and so opposite of what we're hoping for, and so unfulfilling, so desperately empty. And I know that those who are attending this class right now, you can relate to this. You can understand what we're talking about, that we have this great desire for fulfillment, and yet it eludes us all the time. And I know that a number of years ago we had a back to the country movement, and I will confess I was part of that, and that's when we moved to Prince Edward Island during the get back to the country, find fulfillment in a quieter life, in a simpler life, and we're looking for fulfillment by doing these things. And it was a huge movement of people doing this and still doing that. But the problem was this: we got to the country, we got to the simple life, and what do we find? We're not fulfilled. We find the same emptiness in our country setting. We find the same emptiness in our simple lifestyle. We find the same emptiness as we're going into Whole Foods and eating properly and looking for health through nutrition. And as we're doing, we've got our own cows and we're milking our own goats. And we're doing all of these things, and we find that our life is still empty. It's still desolate. It seems to have no meaning. And so that's why we have to go back to the foundation. We have to go back to the beginning to find out why we cannot find satisfaction in our job. We can't find it in the city. We can't find it in the country. We can't find it in our possessions. We can't find it anywhere. Everybody's just running around with such a resounding emptiness of heart. And that's why we have to go so far back to Deuteronomy 28, because here we find the law of God that determines the fulfillment of your life today. The joy that's in your life today is based on the law of God from thousands of years ago in Deuteronomy 28. It says if we will obey the laws of God, His blessing will be upon our lives. And if we ignore the laws of God, His curse will be upon our life. If we neglect through ignorance, or if we neglect willfully, if we abandon the the commandments of God and the Word of God, the result of that will be a curse which brings forth this emptiness and this complete lack of fulfillment. And that's why we had to go back so far. So this explains why we're so miserable. The Bible's answer is we have fallen under the curse of God's displeasure because we're constantly breaking His laws. We're constantly breaking His laws. And you say, I'm not constantly breaking God's laws. Well, I bet you are. I bet you are, because God's laws are very, very far-reaching and impact so many areas of our life that we today do not even think about, because we have become so far from even looking into God's laws that we break God's laws in ways we don't even think about or know about. So that's why it is very much in our best interest to find out how we might be breaking the law. Let's just give a little case in point, okay? Let's just give a little illustration. You're a homeschool family. You're a homeschool mom. And you have done everything that you can think of to make your world pleasant. Okay? You make your own soap. You make your own jam. Make your own clothes. You do everything natural. You have your own chickens. You're doing all of these different things. And by all outward appearance, you guys should be like super happy. Just remember, when I'm saying this, I'm looking at us because we did the whole chicken bit and all these different things. We never got so far as making soap, but we're just one step shy of making soap. And yet the fulfillment is just lacking, it's missing, it's elusive. And then what we don't realize is that we have some root of bitterness or of unforgiveness towards someone in your family or a neighbor or some person that has done something really hurtful to you. And so you have this unforgiveness in your heart toward them that you're not even thinking is wrong, because after all, they're the ones who did you wrong. Okay? So you're perfectly innocent in your eyes because they're the ones who hurt you. Meanwhile, we have this root of unforgiveness that's in us. That root of unforgiveness is breaking God's law. That root of unforgiveness that we don't even think about or see because we just have justified ourselves in our own mind of why why we were right and they were wrong. And so we have this root of bitterness that's in us that we don't even think is wrong. Well, God does think it's wrong. Therefore, we come under the displeasure of God in that area because we have allowed sin in our life that has not been confessed. And so now that has caused there to be a discontentment in all that we do. And this is very simple when it comes to family relationships, husbands and wives, kids between kids and parents and kids, and each other. Is very, very, very simple to have a root of bitterness because there's always things that we're doing that hurt each other, right? In a family, we're always hurting each other. We're always, saying something that hurts. And so these resentments can build up. And that's one of the huge ones. That's a real big one that affects our peace and our fulfillment when it comes to Christmas, family times, family gatherings. That's a huge one. There's all kinds of roots of resentment, anger toward family members is very common. And so you can see through that little illustration that if there's areas in our life where we are not obeying the commandment of the Lord, we are bringing about the curse of God as listed in Deuteronomy 28. Now we're cursed in our home. We're cursed in the city. Not that we're smitten down. Hopefully nobody has gotten boils and scabs yet. But that actually will come if we don't let go of these things. But the main thing that happens is this discontentment, this emptiness, this unfulfillment just washes over us. And it's a result of breaking the law of God. That's why this course is going to be very instructive for us all, because we're going to examine where are we breaking God's law in ways we don't even know about. What are the things in our life that are offending God, that are bringing forth this displeasure that is causing us to have this great unfulfillment? And I'm not saying that the wrath of God is on you and he's just like ready to throw you to hell. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying his wrath is against you. I'm saying that there is a natural consequence for disobeying God, and that consequence is the unfulfillment that you feel right now. It's the natural consequence. Okay? So God has a great heart of love toward you. He does. He has a great heart of love. But if we do things that are wrong, there are natural consequences that follow. And so it's very, very important for us to discover the root cause of whatever is causing our lives to feel and seem empty. Okay, so now let's continue. Why is law so important? We live in a time of great lawlessness. Laws are perceived as annoying, unnecessary, and restricting our personal freedom. There is great pride in openly disregarding laws. However, let's consider just one small example to help us change our concept of the law. Okay? How many times have you been irritated at being restrained by traffic laws? Now picture driving into one of our major cities. I'll pick on Boston because it has a number of unusual intersections, some containing 5 or 6 convergent streets. During rush hour, these intersections are considered chaotic. Each driver impatiently strains to get through, sometimes waiting 2 or 3 changes from red to green before successfully passing through. Irritation at being slowed down is evidenced on many faces. But this is not chaos. If there is a power outage and the traffic signals go down, now that is chaos. Coincidentally, as these words were being written, the largest electric blackout in history occurred, leaving New York City, Toronto, Detroit, and a number of other cities with no power. I hope there's no connection. The result of having no traffic signals was graphically displayed as the afternoon rush hour traffic came to a complete standstill. It became very evident that it is precisely because we have traffic laws that we can drive in the city at all. Without them, confusion reigns and it is not even possible to drive through a crowded area. So traffic laws are not only good, but essential for us to live and conduct business. In the same way, law itself is good and essential for life. Now that's what we want to do, is change our whole perception of the law. We who are called Christians, we have a great predisposition toward thinking that the law is bad, that the law is something to be avoided. After all, we don't want to become like the foolish Galatians. And so law itself has a very, very bad connotation today. But we will very, very clearly show during the course of during the course of this course that the foolish Galatians that Paul warned not to get back under the law was dealing with something entirely different than what we're talking about today. And that law itself is very good. It's very good. It's necessary for life. In fact, you cannot have people living together in any way without having law. So the traffic light example is very good because you can clearly see that if there were no traffic laws, you would not be able to have commerce in a city. You couldn't drive through New York if there weren't laws. The law makes it to where you can exist together with other people. So law itself is good. Law itself is ordained by God. God is a very lawful God. And his kingdom, his world, and his universe runs on laws. Law is not bad. Law is a very, very good thing. It's a very good instrument of peace. So I want you to begin to adjust yourself to this idea that law is not bad, that law is not something that we as Christians need to abandon because we don't want to be criticized as being foolish Galatians. No, the law itself is good, necessary, vital for human life. So I want you to mull on these things as you get prepared for the next lesson. I want you to read through this, answer the questions in your workbook, and enjoy your discussion with your group leader as we enjoy discussion here among ourselves. So we will see you on lesson 2. And I think that if you will persist and go through this course with us, you will come out the other side a really, really new person. Revival will actually be beginning in you as you go through this. So be patient, hold fast, don't get upset at things you don't understand right off. Just pray and ask God to help you through this, because this course will actually renovate your life. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you for lesson 2.